at the promenade and the pier, and that it's our responsibility as a community to look after our town and its natural surroundings. However, it's our opinion that it necessitates a solution which we must find through community dialogue. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, Fiona McPhail, very involved in stuff. Yes, very involved in that, and stuff happening down the bottom of Barbican Road towards Streetway, which some of you may or may not have heard about, and also very, very skillfully facilitated and chaired our raw, undomesticated community meeting at Barbican Theatre. So I'll hand over to Fiona now to say a bit about what she wants to speak about.
Today is obviously very much talking about concerns with regard to Princess Gardens. However, whilst that's the primary focus of this meeting, I would like to broaden the scope, if I may, into other issues with regard to the Mayoral Vision. I would like to say first off that I do strongly oppose the Princess Gardens development, and I see no place whatsoever for losing that view, thank you very much, or losing our promenade. However, today what we have with us are people from across the bay. You may be from Torquay, you may be from Paignton, Brixham, that we don't know. But what you are here today is people who are concerned for the bay, people who love the bay. You are not what councillors and Mr. Bye would say are NIMBYs, nor are you moaners. And I personally find it highly objectionable that that's the label that is given to us. We're residents of the bay and we have an absolute right to have our say with regard to the bay. Very kind of you. So the scheme which I'm going to focus on is one which forms part of what I call the misguided vision. And it was forced through despite failing to meet planning guidance, despite public opposition, and despite objections from English Heritage, and also, interestingly, despite its failure to conform to the Council's own urban design guidance, a quote from which I shall give you later. It's one which would see the demolition of a number of Victorian buildings, and although they are not listed, they do contribute to the street scene of the bay and the character of the town. This is a scheme which we again have a chance to stop. The construction has not taken place and there have been changes with regard to what's available. However, what I'd like to do first is just to take you through some images of our town. I could equally have taken images of Paignton, I could have taken pictures of Brixham, but today the focus is around Torquay. And one of the things here is that these images illustrate, I think, some examples of what the supporters of the Mayoral Vision have forgotten to value, which is that we have some unique and valuable buildings here in the bay, and we have beautiful open space. And we should seek to restore these buildings, and we should seek to preserve. I'm also going to show some examples of what I would think are mistakes which have been made in this town, and mistakes that I fear that the Mayoral Vision will replicate and indeed potentially exceed. So these are developments which are not lovely, and you may well be able to picture a few in your mind, and I've picked out just a few. But what those developments do is they do not show due regard to our heritage and our history. And then I'm also going to show you a few shots of neglect and a failure to deal with some of the basics within the bay. And surely that's where we should start, not with grandiose schemes which benefit, well, not us. Okay, so I did say that this could be okay, spot that building, tell me where it is. What you'll probably recognise here, this is Fleet Street, the upper part of which, I haven't actually got Fleet Walk, possibly, well, I've got a picture of Fleet Walk later. Okay, so we start off, and this is part of Fleet Street. And if you look up, we actually have some really rather fine buildings here. And here we have a rather lovely image, I think, of our harbour side. It is a bit of a shame on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, but it is still very, very lovely. We've also got some really fine heritage buildings in our town. And we've got some businesses which are really trying to take the bay forward. And then we have something such as this. I don't know, anybody know where this is?
Factory Road?
This is right up. This is at the back in Union Street. And actually, you might think that I'm showing this to say, what a disgrace. Well, partly I am, but I'm also showing this to say, actually, we've got some quite interesting little quirky buildings that, well, why aren't we doing something with them? And certainly what we shouldn't be doing is knocking them down. If any of you have been to Granby Street in Exeter, quirky buildings, doing rather nicely, thank you. So we've got buildings like this, and we've got spaces like this. And what I would say here is admire that view, because the image which goes into the Herald Express never shows the impact on that view. What you see is the let's look along the promenade. No, let's look across the gardens and look at what we've got. We've got a very nice view, and it's one that we should fight to keep. And then we've got stuff like this. Now then, do we really want more of this? I'm sure this is viewed as cutting-edge design, but I have to say, it's not my view of that which is beautiful. It's not my view of that which will bring tourists to the bay. And here we have an interesting juxtaposition. We've got another fine building and another very nice business up in Union Street, next to, not very nice, I'm very sorry, Argos, but really not a very attractive design at all. And BHS, okay, you can make your own view as to whether that's a type of building that you would like to see replicated within the town. There we have, now anybody know what that is? Where are we?
So the taxi rank.
And looking behind...
One with scrubs?
You might think so, but if I say back a Fleet Walk, that's what we've got there. That was also well thought through. Okay, and now it is a case of spot this. Okay, so where might this be? Anywhere. This is Fleet Street, and this is saying, why aren't we dealing with the basics? Who on earth would let a contractor come in, dig up this type of paving and whack a load of concrete in? Now, really, I'm sorry, but in terms of basics, this really is something that we should not be permitting.
Buses shouldn't be on it.
And the buses, oh, don't get me started on the buses. Don't get me going on the buses, no. Anybody know where this is? This is the harbour side, yes. Welcome to Torbay. Do sit down and do look at the lovely views. And whilst you do so, be very careful not to pick up a splinter. You know, and in our world of litigation, that could be jolly pricey. So let us fix the basics. This, I'm afraid, I had to apologise for the fuzziness of this image, but it prizes if you can say where this one is. Of course, this is Torwood Street. Now, this one I had to look because I didn't have a photograph of this, so my apologies. But, notwithstanding the fact that you have a fuzzy, not too great image there, what we actually have are some quite attractive Victorian buildings which contribute to the street scene. And on the other hand, what we have is what I'm afraid I would call misrepresentation. And I would say we have misrepresentation yet again with regard to what's being proposed for Princess Gardens. This was part of publications that we put together at the time that the Torwood Street development was being pushed through. Images that actually didn't show the height, the scaling and the reality and the impact of this within the local area. And really, consultation, question mark. Anybody know where that is? It is that lovely building. And yet, what have those developers been allowed to do? They've bought up that whole row of premises, then they board it, and then they pretend that these buildings are not fit for function, not fit for purpose. And yet, 2 new businesses have opened up higher up in Torwood Street over the last weeks and months. So I think it questionable that actually these are not viable businesses, and there are a couple which have been operating all through the summer. What I would say, and I said in the Herald Express, New Riviera Estates, how dare you? How dare you do something like board this up, leave this boarded all through these months, and you can see what usage has been put to. The design which is presented to us, which I think is along the